welcome back. I'm joined by Sara Davison, a twice best-selling author and host of the super successful Heartbreak to Happiness podcast and retreat. Sara's holistic coaching style empowers individuals to take back control of their lives in every area and realise their full potential. Known as the best-kept secret of society's elite, with a client list that spans actors, politicians and sportsmen, we're thrilled to have her here today to chat all things relationships. Welcome, Sara. It's so lovely to have you.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Obviously, the pandemic, we can't talk about relationships, divorce, healthy relationships without touching on what's been going on over the past year. How has the pandemic changed the divorce rates, first of all?
Well, it's had a huge impact on relationships, but just purely because people are stuck at home together and can't get out. So unfortunately, the latest statistics from a law firm, Sheerluxe Law, recently released said that the last half of 2019, the divorce rate was up 122%, which is huge.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people going through it right now. I think also it's affected relationships that would have lasted the test of time.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask. Do you think the pandemic has been the thing that has ruined those relationships?
Yeah, I've seen it in my coaching clinic because I've got people coming to me whose relationship I believe would have lasted, and so do they. But their relationship was set up on a dynamic of they both work, so they both got careers, they're out the door every day. And I think when you take that away, that sort of freedom to spend time with other people, and you are stuck with that one person and you're not used to that, that's when irreparable damage can be done. And I think, you know, it's tough.
What do you think are the kind of the deal breakers, the things that have sent couples, well, in the pandemic, but generally that have sent couples kind of over the edge?
Well, I think there's been so many things. I think the pandemic has introduced another layer of anxiety and stress for everybody. So we're already living with that as an increased situation at home where tensions are going to be high. So even with good relationships, that's putting pressure on. If you adding that pressure in where there have been tensions in the past and the foundations are rocky, this is just going to blow the doors off that, unfortunately. So unresolved issues at home that have been left to fester with this anxiety, especially financial pressures, people losing their jobs, people not being able to work, you know, managing the homeschooling, I know was a massive thing for so many people. I think all those pressures are really just going to be enough for amicable relationships to put them under pressure, let alone people who are having problems. So I think that has been a real factor.
And also, you know, the pandemic makes your world so small, doesn't it? If you're isolating or you're in lockdown, everything feels like such a big deal, where it otherwise just completely wouldn't, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I just think everything is slightly blown out of proportion just because we're not used to living with that amount of tension and anxiety. Now, are we going to get ill and worrying about loved ones? Yeah. And also, you know, being in one house with one person means that if we've got an issue or challenge, we're going to probably talk to them about it. But actually, and this is a really interesting concept about, it's called romantic realism, where you know, is it okay to put all your issues on one person? Because if you think about it, we all have friends for different things, don't we? So we have a friend that will talk to you about work, a friend that will talk to you about kids, a friend will talk about relationships. But then your partner, if you're in the house with them all the time, becomes that one person for everything. Yeah. And I think that's unrealistic to put that pressure on one person. So you're not going to get the responses you always want from that person. They're not going to be able to emotionally support you, be the best lover, be the best parent, be your best friend, put up the shelves, take the rubbish out. You know, you can't expect one person to do everything.
If you are, you know, just about to enter into a relationship or you're with somebody who you think might be the one, what are the important factors to consider? What do you think are the keys to a successful relationship?
Well, what is important for you is it really essential to work out before you get into a relationship. So I think as human beings, we all know what we want from a partner. So, you know, clients will say to me, oh, tall, dark, handsome, or short, blonde, blue eyes, you know, whatever. We all know instinctively what we have chemistry with and who we're attracted to. But very rarely do we think, what do I need? So need is where we have to look back and learn the lessons from past relationships. So for example, if in the past you felt that your partner couldn't really talk about their emotions with you, then that might be something that's really important to you. If your partner in the past had lied to you or had cheated, then it's important that when you go forward, you're filtering out anyone that has any red flags of cheating or not being honest with you. And that means taking off those rose-tinted glasses on the first couple of dates. One of my clients said to me once, she said, oh, I went on this date and he was telling me that on our first date that his mum had said he was quite selfish. She said, and I thought, oh, that's quite a nice thing to say, because he's obviously being very honest, and if he's telling me that, it can't be that bad. And the reason they broke up was because he was incredibly selfish. And this was years down the line. Yeah. And she said, he told me on date one.
He was open about it.
Yeah. So I think the message is, you know, if someone's telling you who they are, listen.
But let's say you're in a relationship and those needs change. You know, you're talking about, you know, if you need somebody to be X, Y, Z to you, well, it's possible that in 10 years or in 20 years, what you need is something different.
Yeah.
Is that a deal breaker? How do you seek what you need if you still love that partner and you've been together a long time, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because we all change over time. And I think if you go through traumatic events like we have with COVID, or if someone that you really care about dies, or maybe you lose a job, there's so many things that can trigger changes in us. Now, sometimes the relationships do fizzle out, and you know, sometimes that's for a good reason. You know, relationships can be great for a period of time, but maybe aren't always going to be the same. So I think it's up to the individual to work out, what do you want? There are a lot of ways to save a relationship and to get that spark back. So it's all about communication. It's about sitting down with your partner and reinforcing, first of all, you know, they call it at work, don't they, the feedback sandwich. You give them something positive first. And I think that's really important, rather than just going in with, well, you do this and I don't like this. You know, start with, you know, what I really love about you is this. And I love it when you bring me a cup of tea, or when you take the kids out for the week, for the day. For the week would be great too.
Just a month,
yeah. A month, yeah. So, you know, those sort of things start so that they feel safe and you can open up, and then say, but, you know, when this happens, I'm not sure, how do we get our spark back? And it doesn't necessarily take two to get that process started. If you think your partner might be resistant to that, if you start doing the things that you think need to happen to get it back on track, then you might see your partner step up as well. So, you know, you can do things, having those conversations and trying. I definitely think that it's important to spend at least 3 months doing everything you can to save the relationship, so that you don't leave with any regrets.
Yeah. But what about those things when, you know, when you're just picking at each other? Actually, sometimes it can be about a change in attitude as well, can't it? And just being like, actually, I'm just going to decide to be really positive in this relationship for a week or a month or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because identifying what the triggers are is key. So going back to think, okay, well, when we start to pick at each other and have those niggly conversations, what is happening on the lead up? Because if you can interrupt what happens at that trigger point, then you can change the outcome. Now, if you do find you're getting into those situations, what can you do differently? Because obviously if you keep on doing the same things, you'll get the same results. And it might feel comfortable because you've been doing it for a long time, and maybe you're into a pattern of responding to each other like that. So doing the unexpected can actually really work very well to dissolve some of that tension. So it could be just saying, I love you, out of the blue, when things start to get heated, or going up and giving them a hug, or a little kiss on the cheek, or even distracting completely by going, oh, can you smell popcorn? And then all of a sudden,
just deviating the conversation.
Completely gone. Yeah. So, you know, it's finding ways to not get into the same pattern, not get stuck into the same arguments, you know, trying to change the way you're doing things, just to see if there is some hope there to
We're all guilty of that, however happy a relationship is anyway,
absolutely,
aren't we?
And it's normal.
What are the things that you would really discourage people from doing, the day-to-day things or the bad habits that you think everybody should try to avoid in order to kind of, you know, have a happy, healthy relationship long term?
Well, I think it's all about compromise. I think you've got to be thinking about the other person. So it's all very well making sure that you're okay, because obviously that's important too. But I think, you know, when you're putting yourself first continuously, that can be tricky. And, you know, I've got a client at the moment who's in a relationship and it really is falling apart, but her ex just wants to watch his program every night and she's feeling like she has to go along with it, but it's never vice versa. So I think being able to communicate about what's important for you is really key. I think, as we were talking about earlier, going to bed at different times every night can cause problems, because you're not getting that intimacy. You're not going through that daily routine of talking about your day and brushing your teeth together, or whatever it is that you do. You have your little routine. That keeps that intimacy alive. I think if you start living separate lives, then that can go. And once it becomes a habit, once you haven't been intimate for a long period of time, it gets harder to reignite that.
Yeah, it's so true. Okay, let's talk about the slightly less positive stuff. If your relationship has broken down, what do? You've tried everything, it's still not working, both kind of emotionally and practically. What are the steps you should be taking?
Well, first of all, please don't panic. And, you know, it's very normal to feel overwhelmed, devastated, sad, all those negative emotions. So just know it's normal. You're not alone. There are a lot of people that have been through it and are going through it. Okay, I think it's important. And just to have a faith that you will get through this. You might not know how at this stage, but just having the faith that you will get through it, things will get better. So that would be the first thing. Then the second thing I would suggest is setting up what I call your breakup support team around you of people who that you can turn to, that you know can help you, that will support you positively. You know, and that means choosing your friends and family quite carefully, because I had a client who turned up for her first session with me. As she pulled up, I opened the door and she popped the boot of her car, and she had all these bin liners in the back. And she was saying, oh, my best friend came over last night. We had a couple of glasses of wine. She's so angry with him for cheating on me. So literally, she opened a bag. She cut up these coats, like really expensive, like those camel hair coats,
she went
slippers, everything
on him.
was just trashed in the back.
Wow.
And, you know, though that friend was her best friend and very well-meaning and loved her, but because she was so emotionally involved as well, that can be difficult. So really picking the friends that you go to for advice, for constructive advice that aren't necessarily going to have such negative consequences. And I think if you've got a team around you of people, not only friends and family, but also, you know, someone that can answer those legal questions potentially. Because if you don't get clarity on them, they're going to be a source of anxiety and stress for you. Not locking yourself away. You know, of course, there's going to be times where you just want to stay in bed, pull the duvet over your head and not go anywhere. And that's normal. But, you know, being able to get out and go for a walk and exercise if you can, and just making sure you're not leaning on some of the negative crutches that people fall towards, like, you know, drinking too much, eating the wrong things. You know, those sort of things can be, you know, traps that we all fall into.
Focus on wellness, I guess.
Yeah, trying to.
Let's talk about you. A divorce coach. What should people come to you for? What do you do? You
know, I help people at all stages, all different backgrounds, all different areas of life, trying to manage that heartbreak, devastation, and then turning your life around, taking back your control. You know, I always say we all have the remote control to our brain, but we just don't know how to use it because we're never given the manual. So it's about understanding why we do the things we do. And like I said earlier, learning those lessons so that you can go on and be happy again. You know, it is possible and lots of people do it. So there's a way to shortcut that, and that's what we share with our clients.
God, everybody needs a bit of that, don't they? You've got a podcast as well, we should quickly say too, for anybody who's after a bit more positivity in their life too.
Yes, that's Heartbreak to Happiness. And I give a lot of advice and tips there on there, as well as have some really interesting guests talking about what they've gone through in their breakups and true stories as well. So.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. So, Sara, thank you so much. I feel like I could pick your brain on all things relationship for much longer. So thank you for joining us.
You're very welcome.
Do follow Sara at Sara Davison, divorce coach, for more invaluable advice.